Magento also provides a software as a service solution called Magento Go. Go has no code level access, but customization is possible through community extensions, Magento themes, and an API for doing extension development. Go builds on the community and enterprise infrastructure to provide fine-grained customization of store layout and design, but it's entirely through a web interface. So as a user, you can go in and move around how your website will look, but you have no actual access to the code. Plans for Go start at about $15 a month and go up to $125 a month, depending on the number of products in the store. The three systems together, Go, Community Edition, and Enterprise Edition, represent solutions for different parts of the e-commerce market. Everything from small mom and pop businesses all the way up to clients doing millions of dollars in revenue through their web portals. The interesting thing about Community Edition is rather than trying to capture the mid-range market, Variant has opted to make their money on the high end and the low end of the spectrum, the e-commerce spectrum. Ultimately, there are too many mid-range companies out there for Variant to be doing business with all of them, so they traded this market section for the advantages that come from a community of developers working on their core. By opening the core, they get a legion of unpaid developers working to improve the system while only losing the fraction of the market that they could have supported as a business. This lets them focus on being developing software and being a software development company instead of being primarily a project management firm. So I'm going to talk a little bit about OSL 3. Community Edition is licensed under OSL 3. Seeing this is an open source festival, I thought we'd talk a little bit about what that license is and how it strengthens Magento's business model. So the primary goal of OSL 3 is to authorize recipients of an original work, in this case Magento, CE, to exercise any of the licensor's copyright and patent rights in that original work for any purposes whatsoever consistent with the fundamental principles of free and open source software. What that means, to be consistent with the principles of free and open source software, is unclear, but licensees may freely distribute copies of the original work that they receive and derivative works that they create. OSL 3 is reciprocal. It's also called copyleft license. It imposes a reciprocal source code disclosure obligation, similar to but narrower than that of the GNU public license. Under OSL 3, derivative works must themselves be licensed by OSL 3, and therefore the source code of those derivative works must be disclosed. So basically anything that you make with Magento's core code, you must also be licensed under OSL 3. That way all derivative works are open source, and that's the meaning of copyleft. Also, you must retain in the source code of any of the derivative works that you create all copyright, patent, or trademark notices from the original work. And finally, OSL 3 functions more like the LGPL rather than the GNU public license, in that it doesn't attempt to force the disclosure of source code of independently written software. This means third-party extensions and themes are not required to be open source. They only interoperate with the open source core. They don't modify or extend it. And that has some pretty important ramifications for Magento and their business model. So Magento Connect, Magento's third-party package manager, because there is no requirement to open source third-party applications, themes and extensions can actually be closed-source products produced by third-party vendors. They can be sold through Magento Connect. A whole cottage industry of third-party developers has sprung up, developing products that meet the needs of mid-range businesses who can't afford to pay Variant $50,000 a year to implement their features for them. Ultimately, what this means for Magento is that there's a community of developers surrounding Magento who are often, but not always, monetarily invested in improving the platform, which means better patches, better bug reports, and better free labor for Magento. Okay. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. I'm a software developer, I'm a programmer, and I know there are probably some other programmers out there in the audience, and I can hear you saying, blah, 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 Chris. That sounds like a bunch of marketing fluff and legalese. What is Magento really? Well, Magento is a modular piece of software with a model view controller architecture. It has extensive code-level support for third-party plugins, which is ultimately a part of Magento's business model. And it's based on the Zen framework. Magento, as of version 1.6.2, is 12,225 files with a little under 600,000 lines of code. This includes PHP, JavaScript, CSS, mixed HTML and PHP, sometimes referred to as PHTML, and extensive XML-based configuration. In addition to that, a default installation of Magento has 320 database tables, including an entity attribute value schema for modeling the e-commerce problem space. And if you want to talk about that afterwards, I will talk your ear off about it. But you probably don't care, so that's why I didn't put it in the presentation. Magento always prefers configuration to convention, which is sort of a meme in the software world, which means that which means that not only are the procedural aspects of Magento's code base configurable, but almost all of the aspects of how Magento presents itself to the user can also be configured, either through the web interface or through directly modifying the XML configuration files. So Magento is actually cross-platform, but it's happiest in the LAMP stack, which is a fantastic stack of open source software that supports a large portion of the World Wide Web. I just want to run through it really quickly because I think it's awesome. Linux, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, is a Unix-like operating system assembled under the model of free and open source software development and distribution. Apache is an HTTP web server and is maintained by the Apache Software Foundation. PHP is a server-side scripting language, which is also free software released under the PHP license. MySQL, which is actually another open core system, is the world's most used relational database management system, and that's available under the GNU public license. And then finally, Zen Framework, which is an open source object-oriented web application framework implemented in PHP 5 and licensed under the GNU BSD license. This can be a little hard to visualize, so it kind of looks like this. That's the stack. This is the backend. So I'm going to guess most people here have at least heard of the LAMP stack, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, but Zen Framework is probably not something you've heard of unless you're in the web development industry. Zen Framework is sponsored by Zen Technologies, which was co-founded by PHP core contributors Andy Gutmans and Ziv Sarasky. It's helpful when you're in a stack to have the people who are writing the top part have also written the part that it's written on top of. And so Zen is pretty beefy. It's basically a use-at-will architecture of loosely coupled components with minimal interdependencies. Zen Framework is an encapsulated group of libraries that handles a bunch of the most common tasks in web application development, like HTTP request response modeling, database access and manipulation, authentication and resource access control, model view controller design patterns, and extensive support for internationalization and localization. So you want to roll your own e-commerce system. Commerce has been around for a long time, and creating a general solution for a merchant's day-to-day needs is going to be pretty complicated. What are some of the things that you're going to have to do? Persistently model a hierarchy of products, providing the ability to users to search and navigate this catalog, and also give the merchant the ability to create and modify products and place them in that catalog. Model the workflow for a user so that they can add products to their purchases, and then allow them to check out with steps like collecting user information, shipping and billing addresses, for example, as well as processing payments and letting the user review and track their order. Giving the merchant the ability to track, process, invoice, and record orders in their history, which means essentially integrating with their current business process, and providing the merchant the ability to cross-sell, upsell, discount, and promote products. Magento does all of this for you. Product modeling with custom attribute sets and different product types, including simple products with attributes like length, width, color, size, all of that's customizable. Combined products that actually help the merchant solve an interesting problem in the space called product inventory problem, essentially modeling conflicting patron and merchant needs. So, for example, as a merchant, let's say I have 300 large red T-shirts and 300 medium red T-shirts and 300 small red T-shirts in my inventory. The user, and probably you, doesn't care about that. They just want to be able to buy a red shirt in their size. And so what the user considers to be a product and what the merchant considers to be a product have different attributes, and that can conflict. Magento will handle all of that for you seamlessly out of the box. Magento also has bundled products, for instance, the Boba Fett action figure, bundled with the Boba Fett accessories. Magento also provides users accounts, gives you a complete checkout workflow, and does administrative management, including catalog hierarchy, and a bunch of other stuff. And the best part is it's all free, and that's pretty sweet. So that is pretty much it for me. Are there any questions?
I've been in and out taking pictures, so I know I've missed some parts. How much focus does Magento spend on developing mobile applications or mobile views?
I think, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head. I couldn't give you numbers, but it has been a big push for them recently to be entering into the mobile space, and it'll be interesting to see under eBay's direction how that sort of evolves.
They also offer like a turnkey native application option, so you can like turn your store into like a native iPhone app, but they charge you for it.
Okay, well, there you go. Other questions, thoughts? E-commerce is great. It's an interesting problem space.
I must have missed this as well. Any websites that are using it right now that we know?
Sure. I think Puma is using it. Macy's, is that right? Do you know, Mike, off the top of your head?
There's like a significant number of large brands that are using it. You can make their website and it shows you like
Yeah. If you go to the Magento website, they've got it right up there.
And they're different, right? So you can customize it totally, so you can't tell what that is.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's completely customizable. It's psychotically customizable. It's as a web application developer, it's sometimes unpleasantly customizable. Other questions?
Thank you for us.